people. Boop, 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 boop. Hello! How are you all today? I know I'm on a little bit later. Good morning. Hello. What? Good morning. Hello. How's it going, Kentisa? How's it going? Ooh, that is loud. Cat Mommy, hello. Cat Mommy, how's it going? Whew. So today we're going to be talking about Canada. Oh, Canada. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. Truth be told, today's show is probably going to be a little bit shorter than normal, mainly because I have been working super, super hard on producing content, and you know, I've been trying to pump out videos and stuff like that, and so I kind of slept in a little bit today, so I'm running a little bit more behind. But I'm excited to talk about this here, because this is really because I really want to dive into some things that might not have been talked about a whole bunch. So, oh, we have a Canadian viewer in here. To all the Canadian friends that are in here, we love you. There are a huge chunk of U.S. citizens that absolutely respect your sovereignty and want you to feel at home and heard. It's crazy how, you know, there's a whole oh God, everything with, we're gonna break it all down. It's just, oh wow, it's just a lot. So anyway, good morning, everyone. So today we're gonna be talking about Canada. Oh, Canada. And yesterday, Donald Trump was brutally friend-zoned by Canada after he announced that he tried to marry Canada. I'm being a little bit, you know, tongue-in-cheek, but also kind of not, because those were his words. So I'm just playing along with whatever it is. So before I turn off before I hide the chat away here, good morning, Kentisa, Cat Mommy, Shaw Stenik. Hello. Good morning, Kate. Good morning, Ellie. Hello. When are you going to set up your super chat sticker? I really need to do that. Actually, I think did I turn them on? I think I turned them on. Maybe I'm missing something. Anyway, oh, C-Bar, hello. Hello. I know, I need to turn them on. Anyway, so I'm going to hide away the chat here so that we can talk about this. I'm also going to turn on the car because my phone's already getting hot. You know, that's just rude. That's just rude. So I always do my live streams in my car, and I know I'm running a little bit behind today, so forgive me on that front. I appreciate every single one of you. This is my first time here. Love you. Oh my God, it's Karen. Is this my mom? My mom's name is Karen. So, anyway, so we're going to be talking today about Canada and the relationship with the United States. So, it will never be for sale, ever. Canada's Prime Minister tells Trump to his face his country will never be a part of the United States. Boom, brutally friend-zoned. Now, you're like, oh, you're just being tongue-in-cheek with the whole, like, marriage thing. No, I'm not, because Donald Trump used the word marriage. So this is how the exchange went yesterday. I'm going to break it all down for you all. So when asked by a reporter, Donald Trump said, and I need my hands. Hold on, I need my hands. I still believe that in regards to do you think that Canada should be the 51st state? He said, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango. And you know, I love tangos. You know, I love the women that do tangos. They are 11-year-old, 15-year-old baby girls. When referring to the dolls comment, he says that, you know, young ladies, you know, baby girls, 15 years old. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, but he said, I still believe that Canada should become the 51st state, he says. But, you know, it takes two to tango. I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military. What is it? What, a free military? Free for who? We as taxpayers pay to have military. So, like, our taxes go to things like that. Then he says, you would get tremendous medical care. They have a universal system in Canada where everyone can go to the doctor regardless of whether you're insured or not insured through private insurance, which is often tied to your employer, which is dumb. So if you get laid off, then you don't have insurance and you have to go out of pocket. Anyway, it's so stupid. But he's like, you would have tremendous medical care. Say that to Luigi Mangione, right? Oh my God. Anyway, he says, and amongst other things, there'd be so many advantages. It would be a massive tax cut. It'd be a massive tax cut. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Anyway, so, and then Donald Trump continues on here. Before I get to Mark Carney's reaction, he's the new prime minister. If you're enjoying the stream, please make sure to subscribe. I love all of you. So Donald Trump said, you know, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, years ago, they drew it with like a ruler. It's a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation, it's together. You know, I'm a very artistic person. But when I looked at that beauty, I said, oh, it was meant to be. When it's all together, it's meant to be. So, like, what is that even? So he's basically, okay. Let me just also mention, all borders for countries are artificially drawn lines. So, like, I don't even know what he's trying to say there. Like, borders are a human created thing. Like, the earth itself, if it had a mind, has no idea about borders. Like, water doesn't understand the concept of a border. So it's just, when you think about it that way, I don't even know what he's trying to say. Anyway, he's like, I'm an artistic person. I want the formation to be all together. It'd just be so beautiful. It'd be so beautiful. It was all together. It's an artificially drawn line. Anyway, so while he's saying all this stuff, Mark Carney, who's the new Prime Minister of Canada, who is a liberal, might I add, we're going to get to the Canadian elections here in a second, is just like looking over at Trump being like, what is this guy thinking? And I took some zoomed in pictures of Mark Carney's face. He's just like, what is this moron going on and on about? You know, when you meet with Trump, it's literally just him muttering away, as my British dance teacher would say. It's just him muttering away, like, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, when will this guy shut up? When is this going to be over? Can I go and get tacos later? You know, and so I made this meme, because he also like pursed his lips, and you know, like when you're sitting somewhere and you just like move your tongue around and you're just kind of looking impatient. He had that kind of look on his face. Anyway, so I just thought that was funny. Now, before I get to his response, Mark Carney said that he's glad that people couldn't tell what was going through his mind when he met Trump. And this is now out there in the press. So I don't know how that's going to react, because for the most part, they had a pretty good meeting. So they had a pretty productive, or I guess not awful meeting. So I guess that's progress. So I'm wondering how it's going to react now that he also said, I'm glad that people couldn't tell what was going through my mind. So we're going to get to that too. He literally said, when asked by reporters, I'm glad you could not tell what was going through my mind, Carney told a reporter after him being asked about his thoughts about the meeting. So Carney was seen pursing his lips, but kept his expression neutral as Trump spoke. And during this exchange, Donald Trump actually even mentioned the idea of marriage. You heard me right. He used the term marriage. Have you ever heard of two countries marrying each other? Now you're like, oh, Scott, come on. That's just such a cheap shot. I'm just simply pointing out, like, he's like, think of if Obama were to say, you know, it's a fantastic marriage with us in Canada. Like, what is that even supposed to mean? But I think he was using it as like a metaphorical term. But it's funny because in regards to Canada, he said, and let me just, this is what he said. So it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places. They get along very well. They like each other a lot. They like each other a lot. You know that guy, that poser, that is like, oh yeah, babe, you know, I can totally see us getting married, and, you know, I just love you so much, and you love me, and it's fantastic, you know, it's just so productive, and such a good conversations, and of course the sex isn't bad either, you know? You know those people, right? You know those people. Donald Trump is like that person. He has a crush on Canada, okay? He has been joking like, oh, you're gonna become the 51st state, you know, if you want it, come and get it. Nah, 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 nah. He's like trying to do everything that a 7-year-old would do. I'm gonna insult Canada and maybe then they'll notice me. So he says it would be a wonderful marriage because they're two places that get along very well. Well, have you asked if Canada gets along well with the United States? Anyway, but let me continue here. So that's what he said. Oh wait, hold on. I'm jumping ahead. Hold on a second. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, it'd be a wonderful marriage. And so Mark Carney then responds, finally, kind of just friend zoning Trump. Are y'all ready? This is when Mark Carney, the new Prime Minister of Canada, responds and is like, all right, as you know from real estate, sir, there are some places that are never for sale. So first, this is genius. I don't know too much about Mark Carney. I'm a generally, I seem to like him. I just want to point out, Donald Trump uses his expertise in real estate when talking in this conversation. He talks about how he's a real estate developer at heart, and he's kind of talking about his past there. I think it's really smart for Mark Carney to talk to him in a metaphor through something that Trump knows stuff about. It's kind of like talking to a kid, you know? But that's also kind of shows how childish Trump is. So Mark Carney completely rejects the idea of becoming a state within the United States, the 51st state. Completely rejects it, saying, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale. And then Donald Trump says, that's true. And he says, we're sitting in one right now, which was either the White House or Mar-a-Lago. I'm pretty sure it was the White House. That's true. Buckingham Palace, that's another one you visited as well. And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign, the last several months, it's not for sale. It won't be for sale ever. So when Donald Trump is like, he's talking about how he's a real estate guy at heart. He really wants this marriage to work with Canada. He's like, you know, I'm a real estate developer at heart. You get rid of that artificially drawn line. It'd be such a beautiful formation when it's all together. When it's all together, you know, it'd just be so gorgeous, so beautiful, so tremendous. So tremendous. I forgot my hands when I do my impression. Also, my car is getting hot, so excuse me. I'm a hot piece. Also, if you're enjoying the live stream, please make sure to subscribe. It means a lot. I've also posted some other videos and content. As a quick little side, I posted a video about the Met Gala yesterday. I don't typically follow pop culture. If you're looking for just some sort of amateur reviewing fashion, that's me. I mean, I've done drag before and I watch RuPaul's Drag Race, but like, if you're just looking for some genuine fun content, then go and check that out. It's my latest video. Anyway. But Mark Carney speaks to him using a metaphor, saying how, you know, Canada, I'm sorry, but it's just not for sale. It's just not for sale. And I think this is really, really smart because he's speaking to Trump in a language that he's going to understand. He's speaking to him in a language he's going to understand, which I think that, like, this is how you handle people like Trump. But also, what does that say about our leader? That you kind of have to cloak things. You have to turn someone down lightly. You know, it kind of shows how childish of a leader Donald Trump is. Because when you really look at this situation, it is really, really childish. And you're like, okay, well, how so? It's like Donald Trump has a crush on Canada, trying to get Canada's attention, wants it to be a part of the group, wants it to be a part of the United States. And Canada is like, oh, yeah, dude, sorry, no, not interested, friend zoned immediately. Or you know that person that keeps flirting with you, but you say that you're not interested and they won't stop? Well, let me get to it further, because at some point Trump doubles down on it and doesn't want to take no for an answer. So it continues here. Where was it? Canadian Prime Minister says that he's glad that Trump couldn't read his mind in the Oval Office. I mean, it's wild. So he's like, yeah, the president has made known his wish about the issue of trying to become a state in the United States for a long time. And I've been careful always to distinguish between wish and reality, Carney said at a doorstep interview after his meeting with Trump. That's also a really good way to put that. Canadians are just so much smarter than Americans generally. That's kind of my take. But I was clear in the Oval Office, as I have been clear throughout on behalf of Canadians, that this is never going to happen. Canada is not for sale and will never be for sale. Also, as an aside, when you break down the polling of people in the United States that want Canada to become a state, it's like so few. It's so low. It's so little. When you ask people of Canada, hey, do you want to become a part of the United States? They're like, no. The polling is pretty clear. The reason, and I'll get to this later, the reason why you have a liberal leader right now in Canada like Mark Carney is because Mark Carney ran on fighting Trump. There was a conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, that was kind of like, they called him Maple MAGA up in Canada. And he's always been very, very friendly towards Trump and very like trying to resemble himself as that. And Carney constantly like hit upon that, being like, we're never going to join the United States. We don't need to be like them. We need to be us. We need to be Canada. And I think that's really, really smart. There's been a surge in Canadian nationalism, which is very like, you know how Americans are very like, yeah, we're for America. We're all for our independence, our sovereignty. Well, Canada, ever since Trump has been antagonistic and trying to pressure Canada into joining the United States, they're like, absolutely not. And so their nationalism, their national pride has surged, which led to Carney's victory. I'll show you all that later on. But this exchange is really, really interesting. This is stuff that he would say on the campaign trail. As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen, Carney said in his victory speech on April 29th. So this new prime minister, Trump is a little bit more friendly towards him, and I'll kind of give you why I think that he's more friendly towards him. But before I get to that, after Mark Carney says there are things that are not for sale, you know, we're sitting in one, which he referred to as the White House, you know, Buckingham Palace, which he's like, you've been to. There are some places that are never for sale. And so, and I talked with the people of the owners of Canada, which are like the people who live in Canada, and it's never going to be for sale. Never. And Donald Trump then responds kind of quietly, but he's like, well, listen, Mark, never say never. Never say never. You know that person that constantly hits on you and you turn them down saying that you want to stay friends, or that you want to be acquaintances, or, you know, that you're just not interested, and then they keep pressuring you over and over? You know that person? You know that poser? Also, truth be told, you want to hear a funny story? I went and got my coffee this morning, and someone hit on me and was like, I really want to be with you right now. And I'm like, ooh, I got to get to work. So anyway, but you know, and then he only asked one more time, so he wasn't like super pressured or anything, but like, and he was cute. But that all being said, you know that person that constantly asks over and over and can't take no for an answer? And then they come back over and over like a toxic ex-boyfriend circling the block in his shitty ass car, you know? That's what Donald Trump is like. He is like, well, never say never. I heard a maybe in there, you know, maybe I heard a maybe. Like, anyway, so Donald Trump initially then says, never say never. And Mark Carney kind of is like looking down if you watch the clip, and he's like, never, 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 you know? Anyway, but God, it's just, and it's a mostly, I want to be clear, this is a mostly very, very, you know, genuine interaction between them. So it was on good terms and stuff like that. So, but Donald Trump called it a marriage. Like, he proposed to marry Canada in that sense. That's why I entitled the live Left at the Altar. Because Donald Trump is like, can't you become a part of the United States? Don't you want to be married? And he's like, yeah, well, you're a real estate guy, so I'll tell you in a metaphor that you might understand. We're not for sale. This body ain't for sale, okay? Not for you. Not for anyone ever. Canada's like, we're in our single era. We're in our singles party era. So, by the way, I have not been looking at the chat whatsoever. I do want to, I am going to quickly look at it. The reason why is I'm wondering how many people in here are Canadian. And I do want to express my support for you all and your sovereignty, because listen, you know, we love our northern neighbors. And so I appreciate every single person who is in here, and I just want to give a big shout out to, and I want to express support. I love people of Canada. Like, I'd rather live anywhere than the US. Leave Canada alone, right? Leave Canada alone. Like, they don't want to be a part of us. We need to, you know that when you're looking objectively at one person constantly hitting on another and they say no, yeah, you know what you do? You say, they said no, so don't ask again. And then you see them ask again. The people who are cheering that on, it's like cheering on an abuser. It's cheering on someone that constantly pressures. It's like, for any MAGA person that is for whatever Trump trying to annex Canada without their consent, you're literally cheering on peer pressure and abusive behavior. But I mean, that's nothing new. But like, leave Canada alone. Leave them alone. Let them have their own country. Let them have their own place. Let's put the shoe on the other foot for just a hot second. Let's say for a second that it was instead Canada saying, hey, United States, do you want to become I think Canada has like 6 provinces or whatever, or 7. Do you want to become the next province? How do you think, how would you react? Be like, I don't want to join Canada. Now, because of how crazy America is right now, it's possible that you're going to have some people that want to join Canada. But put aside that all that craziness is out there and that you want to maintain and be a part of America. Think if it was the other way around. Just for a hot second. Just think of it if it was the other way around. How would you react? To all the people who are these like super, super American-loving patriots that are MAGA, how would you react if Mark Carney were to say, hey, we'd love for you to become the 8th province of Canada, and you say no, and then he says, we'll never say never? You would be like, stop pressuring us, that's rude, leave us alone. So just think critically about situations and come to the same conclusion regardless of where you are on the political spectrum. Because that's what's called having an ideology and a set of values. Anyway, so going forward here, I hinted at earlier how This interaction between Mark Carney and Donald Trump was much more cordial than the previous prime minister. The previous prime minister of Canada was Justin Trudeau. This is a guy who actually ended up resigning and stepping down just because he was kind of unpopular. I'm not the biggest expert on Canadian elections. I will say, if you want to know an expert when it comes to Canadian politics, go and check out David Doel. David spelled the normal way, Doel. He has a YouTube channel called The Rational National. He covers a lot of Canadian politics. He talks a lot about stuff. He also is just really measured and super smart. You don't have to agree with his opinions or anything like that, but he does great breakdowns of Canadian politics. I believe also Lance of the Serfs also does some really good stuff, so feel free to go and check them out. But the reason why this relationship between Trump and Carney might be a little bit better is because Donald Trump really didn't like Justin Trudeau. And I'll tell you why I believe. There's not like concrete evidence for my theory, but there's some speculation that's pretty grounded. Just to kind of show how Donald Trump didn't respect Justin Trudeau, the former prime minister. He would constantly say things like, "I'm looking forward to meeting Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada." First off, if you want to do precision of language, it is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of the great country of Canada. But he's using governor and state trying to pressure him. That's what he was doing. And of course, he used this over and over and over, talking about, I hope that Governor Trudeau would like to join us. Now, Trump disliked Trudeau. Carney's probably going to fare better. But let me show you why I truly believe that Trump actually doesn't like Justin Trudeau. Are y'all ready for this? Oftentimes, I think a lot of people are desperate to stretch to like conspiracy theories or the most like rational thing as to why things happen. I think that most oftentimes it's probably going to be the dumbest reason. This is, I think, the reason that Trump did not like Trudeau. It is kind of been floated. It's not evidence. It's been floated. The fact that Melania and Justin Trudeau have always been very, very fond of each other. So it's possible that Trump just didn't like Trudeau for that reason. And these are just some pictures. Who knows? Again, I'm not saying that this is absolute proof. I'm not someone that's going to say that. I just think it's very likely that Trump was not a big fan of Justin Trudeau for this exact reason. Because, Justin Trudeau was always very, very cordial with Melania. And let's just accept this theory for a second. That might explain why Donald Trump is like doing this erratic behavior. I mean, you also, there's been evidence that he does a lot of erratic behavior. I mean, he says the most wild stuff 24/7. No one can deny that. So it is not impossible or improbable to say that this is partially the reason why Trump hated Trudeau. Now, it's not evidence. It's just a theory. Unlike the far right, I'm not going to say that you should believe things if I don't have evidence. That's just my prediction. Now, I also want to point out, for those people who are not familiar with Canada and their elections that recently just happened, Canada just had this big election for their prime minister. Their prime minister, it's kind of like their president in Canada. So the same way that the United Kingdom has a prime minister, Canada has a prime minister, Australia has a prime minister. It basically just means president. Those countries have parliamentary systems, so it's a little bit different from our US government. That all being said, though, this is where it was. If you look down here, this is the aggregate. This is the aggregate of all of the polling averages. And what you see here is in April of 2024, during Justin Trudeau, while he was prime minister, you saw that the Conservatives, which this is gonna be difficult for some American friends in here. The colors of like conservative and liberal are actually swapped in Canada. So when you see in the United States, of course, like red means Republican, blue means Democrat. Well, in Canada, you have liberal, which is actually red. That's kind of similar to like your Kamala Harris or your Joe Biden, those kinds of people. And the conservatives are actually blue. So when you see conservative, that's like Pierre Poilievre. In Canada, that's like Trump. So it's actually swapped. Now, I also want to cover, because there might be some people in here who are not the most politically savvy, I want to point out there's Democrat and Republican parties. Oftentimes, people use the terms liberal and democratic to describe the Democratic Party, and they'd use the terms conservative and Republican to describe the Republican Party. When I was first learning politics, I was like, why are you saying Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative? What does that even, what is all of that? They're kind of synonyms, but they're not quite the same. So whenever you hear liberal, that's like an adjective to describe the Democratic Party. And whenever you hear conservative, that's oftentimes an adjective to describe the Republican Party. So what's really interesting to note here is that when you see red and blue, you often think the two political parties. Well, in Canada, it's swapped. I hope that makes sense. Now, also, Canada has other political parties in here as well, and I'll talk about them in a second, but I just wanted to point out, you can see them on here. Back in April of 2024, Justin Trudeau, who is a part of the Liberal Party, was the Prime Minister. He was just not doing well. I'm not going to get into the specifics of all of that. I'm not the biggest expert on it. If you were interested at what happened with Justin Trudeau, I definitely encourage that you go and research it. But you had the Conservative, which was Pierre Poilievre, leading in the polls for a long time. A long time. Then, come January of 2025, I don't know exactly when Justin Trudeau decided to step down. I believe it was around January or so. But there was a new person that was put in charge of the Liberals. That was Mark Carney. And as Trump's presidency here in America got underway, you saw him amping up the threats of trying to annex Canada. Mark Carney used that to his advantage and constantly hit Trump on that. And also tied Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative, to Trump. So Canadian citizens were like, oh, well, we don't want to be a part of America. We don't want to be a part of any of that craziness going down there. You know, think of it. If you're a Canadian citizen, do you want to elect to get rid of your universal healthcare and go to a private for-profit healthcare system? Do you want to welcome in a massive gun violence epidemic? Like, do you want those things? Do you want the massive, like, food insecurity and affordable housing crises? No. So Canadians were like, okay, well, if the Conservatives equal what Trump is doing, then we don't want any part of that. So Canada literally voted saying, we don't want what America is doing down there, so we're going to go with something different. Even though it's a massive swap from where it was. So this, having a turnaround, and as a political scientist at heart, having this turnaround in this short amount of time is actually fascinating to me. Most societal shifts don't happen within the course of like 4 months. This one did. And that's just fascinating to me. So I also want to point out for American viewers in here who don't really know, there's more than one party here in America, but there's really only two. And in parliamentary systems, you also have more than one party, but it's easier for other parties to form and increase their membership and all of that stuff. So in Canada, there's something called the NDP, which is the New Democratic Party. They're kind of seen as they're seen as like the progressives. They're like the AOCs. They are the Jasmine Crockett, the Bernie Sanders kind of style for Canada. And what's really interesting in this election is that you saw a lot of these NDP people, I think, go towards the Liberals because they were like, you know, we want more progressive stuff, but we also have to stop this conservative guy because, like, we just can't have that. So let's just go for the Liberals. Maybe at some point later on we can do something better. And also you can see BQ. BQ stands for Bloc Québécois. As a fun little thing for Americans in here, I want to point out that there is a big sizable movement in Canada for the province of Quebec to actually declare its independence from Canada. So Bloc Québécois is a party that's their biggest issue. Quebec, actually, there's, as you may have heard or learned about in history, Canada has some roots with French colonizers. So a good chunk of the French actually went and colonized Canada. There was like the French and Indian War that happened. It was really just like French Native Americans against colonizers in America, I believe. I'd have to double check that. Anyway, but you have Canadians' founding was also rooted in French colonization. So instead of think of the provinces, they're kind of like states. So there's the province of Quebec. Their predominant language is actually French. So there's a huge movement in Quebec to actually declare independence from Canada. So that's what the Bloc Québécois party is there. Now, what's also really cool is I don't know of other previous prime ministers if they've done this, but Mark Carney actually speaks French while, you know, as he speaks French in his speeches while being prime minister, which I think is actually really cool and very inclusive. It's the same way that it can be seen as kind of superficial, but it also means something. Same way that Beto O'Rourke would often speak Spanish on the campaign trail as well, when he was running for governor of Texas and also running for Senate. I think it was really cool to see them actually him lean into people who speak Spanish. So it's the same way Mark Carney has also leaned into trying to give a voice to Canadians by speaking their language, which you say, okay, but that's just so superficial. That's just a great way for you to make some press. But also, I mean, that means something. It means that you put in the work and you care about trying to speak to those issues. So while it is seen perhaps by some critics as being superficial, I think it also it's at least a step, you know? So anyway, but the reason why, going back to everything with Trump, the reason why you have Mark Carney and the Liberals doing so well, going from January of 2025 through April, and now, right now to May, is because Mark Carney ran on trying to fight Trump. And again, in his victory speech, he would always talk about, like, as I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen. And Canadian nationalism and pride has surged in the wake of Donald Trump constantly threatening to annex Canada. So that is partially what led to the victory there. What's really fascinating is with all of that being said, Donald Trump actually congratulated Mark Carney. He said it was probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, maybe even greater than mine. What? Donald Trump gave a compliment to someone else? And it wasn't creepy? So I was actually stunned. So during this moment, Donald Trump actually was like, congratulations on your historic win. I mean, he probably kind of respects Carney for that a little bit, but like when I first watched that clip, my jaw dropped. I'm like, what? Donald Trump being nice and complimenting people, okay, credit where credit is due. I was genuinely shocked. I was genuinely shocked when I heard him say, like, it was probably one of the greatest comebacks, of all time, maybe even greater than mine. So, don't ever say I don't give Trump credit. I think that's cool that he... And that's so silly for me to have to be like, it's good that he didn't constantly demonize a leader. That's progress! Anyway. But I also want to point out it is also progress because shortly before the meeting, you know how in previous posts, how Trump would call Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, Governor Trudeau, and that he was a part of the great state of Canada. So he would constantly do that kind of stuff over and over. Governor Trudeau, the great state of Canada, trying to pressure them to being a part of the United States. Well, shortly before meeting Mark Carney yesterday, he actually used the right terminology, which is really, that's big for Trump. It shows how far the United States has fallen when I have to point out, oh my God, Donald Trump didn't name call someone incorrectly or be rude to someone. Look what progress we're making. But that's where we are, okay? That's where we are. Donald Trump actually calls Mark Carney Prime Minister. That's big. Like, that's big for Trump behavior. You can't deny that. And then, of course, he goes on with all of this usual crap and whatever about, like, oh, they're subsidizing, blah, blah, blah. Military, it's fantastic. You know, they need to become a part of the United States. Anyway, he goes on with his normal tirade. But I just wanted to point that out there. Credit to Trump for doing that. Credit to Trump for actually using the correct term, Prime Minister. But after that, he was left in the altar. The poor guy. Now, for those people, after I've been doing all this whole deluge about Canada and Trump relations and the polls that I just showed, I also want to point out some of the relationship between Trump and Canada and in regards to business and trade, okay? This is from the Economic Research Service. You can see here, this is an official website of the United States government. You can see it's also under the USDA. This is specifically showing the trade relations between Canada and the United States. You hear Donald Trump say things like, why is America subsidizing Canada by $200 billion a year in addition to giving them free military protection? And then he goes on saying, like, we don't need their cars, we don't need their energy, we don't need their lumber, we don't need anything other than their friendship. On the other hand, they need everything from us. This is literally the farthest thing from the truth. The government, when compiling data under Donald Trump, the government is like, yeah, no, this is the farthest thing from the truth. The truth is America needs Canada. Canada, needs America, but they don't need it as much as we do. And let me actually show you. This is the U.S. agricultural trade relationship with Canada. This is in regards to the CUSTA, NAFTA, USMCA period. You can see here, this chart is actually pretty simple. The red shows U.S. imports from Canada. The blue shows U.S. exports to Canada. So what we're seeing here is that the red line is higher than the blue line. That means that the U.S. is importing more goods compared to us exporting goods to Canada. What that is telling you, what this is telling us is that we actually need Canada more because we import more stuff from them. I'll break down what some of that stuff is. But you can see here how it's been a relatively even relationship for a while. Of course, you had this small dip here in 2008. That was the 2008 financial crisis. And around here, I don't know what this was. This was Trump years. What's interesting, hold on. What's interesting is you see here, like 2016 through 2020 is when Trump was in office. They started importing more stuff. Now, also, when Biden was in office, 2020 and 2023, they started importing more stuff. So over the years, you've seen the United States importing more goods from Canada. So for the US to back away from the table, in the words of Trump, you don't have a lot of cards right now. Remember when he said that to Zelensky? I think I'm paraphrasing. He's like, you don't have the cards right now. You don't have the cards right now, is what he told Zelensky. We as the United States need Canada more than they need us. We import more stuff from them. We buy more stuff from them than they buy stuff from us. That's what the United States government data is showing. Now, to any MAGA person, they're like, oh, they're lying, or they're lying, or they're lying. Why would they lie? Don't you think they would lie in the other direction in order to try and possibly steer some sort of narrative? But no, this is just the data. The numbers don't lie. Now, when breaking it down here, the United States exports stuff to Canada as well. We export grains, fruits, vegetables, meat-related products. Those are some of the leading exports to Canada. Among some of those is also fuel, ethanol, dog, cat food for retail sale, beef variety and meats, pork, stuff like that. So those are some of the biggest stuff. We have a lot of beef. I guess we also give them dog and cat food. That's an interesting thing. That probably also has like beef and corn and soy and wheat and all that stuff in it too, which is stuff that we produce. The United States' biggest crops and goods exported wise is a lot of like beef, poultry, pork, also wheat, corn, and soybeans. And so that's a lot of our exports other places. Now, a lot of the in 2023, 63.8% of US agricultural imports from Canada consisted of also meat and other animal products, grains and feeds, oil seeds, and oilseed products. The leading agricultural import in 2023 was rapeseed oil, followed by biscuits and wafers, beef and beef variety meats, cocoa and cocoa preparations, frozen potatoes, pork, and variety meats as well. And this is all broken down in this chart here, as you can see. Let me zoom in a little bit more. So you can see how there's beef and beef variety meats is 7%. There's cattle and pork at 3% each respectively, all that stuff. So the United States is getting Canadian direct investment, which has been going up more and more over the years. But when looking at this, the United States imports more goods from Canada than we export to them. So, in the words again of Donald Trump, Canada, you don't have the cards right now. United States, you can't back away from a deal. They are they are importing less than we are importing from them. So it's wild how Donald Trump is trying to be theatrical in his way to, I guess, get a better deal when he has less leverage. And I'm saying that as a United States citizen, just pointing out that the United States has less leverage in that case. So usually the person with the less leverage doesn't have the upper hand in negotiations. So, but of course, Donald Trump is a whiny billionaire that will whine into trying to get whatever he wants. And sometimes that works. But when it's things like democracy, yeah, sorry, that's not up for sale. That's not up for debate. Like, anyway. If you're enjoying the live stream, please make sure to like the stream. I love all of you. Shout out to my amazing moderators in here. I hope that this is really good context for everything as well. Also, America needs Canadian oil. Fun fact, a lot of the refineries here in the United States only function way, way better comparatively using Canadian oil versus other types of oils. So I actually studied energy, so I know how some of this works. I'd have to go and refresh my memory, but there is different types of oils and different composition and stuff like that. The United States, our refineries are better suited to process and refine Canadian oil, which also tends to be much more sour compared to oil from places like Texas, which tends to be more sweet. I'm just trying to break it down here. So we need Canadian oil in order to refine it. So let me break it down here. In January, Donald Trump said that at the World Economic Forum that us, the United States, doesn't need Canadian oil. We have more than anybody. Well, when you actually look at oil reserves, we rank number 9. Okay, Canada ranks 3rd. So 22% of the oil America uses is imported from Canada. Nonetheless, in February, the White House went further, proclaiming its plan to restore American energy dominance. Yada, yada, yada. For more than 50 years, the oil and gas industry has been deeply integrated, like the auto industry, across borders, and like many other economies and supply chains. The U.S. imports oil from Canada and Mexico, and Eastern Europe imports it from the northeastern states and foreign suppliers. Most of Canada's pipelines run south of Alberta to American refineries. So that's also where you had the big Keystone XL pipeline. You had Standing Rock. These are big pipelines that have been tried to be built for various reasons, but often at the expense of Native Americans' sovereignty and their sacred lands, which gets into human rights abuses. Also, these oil pipelines can be really, really dangerous for the environment and contribute to climate change. So that's also where that comes into it as well. Going further here, it's part of the fracking revolution, all that stuff. The result is that while the U.S. ships more than 10 million barrels per day out of the country, it still imports 8.5 million, almost half of that from Canada. So while we are exporting lots of oil, we're also importing a lot of oil, but specifically to refine it. America's refinery capacity is also set up for Canadian product. So the oil sands produce bitumen, which is heavy sour oil. Many U.S. refineries are designed specifically for bitumen, rather than the lighter, sweeter oil produced from Texas's Permian Basin. So there's no viable replacement for Canadian oil. The closest is that to Venezuela, but Venezuela has its own problems and it's currently under U.S. sanctions. So circling back to the whole thing with the relationship between Donald Trump and Mark Carney, let me just point out, the United States needs Canada. Canada needs the United States, but not as much as we need them. It's borne out by the numbers on the US's own data, the US's own government data. We import more stuff from them than they import from us. Or if you want to think about it, we export less to them than hold on, I'm getting this all mixed up. We import more stuff from them than they import from us. Or also vice versa, they export more stuff to us than we export to them. So if you want to talk about negotiations, Trump is a businessman. We do not have the upper hand here. We need them more than they need us. So for Donald Trump to be acting in this way of trying to do some weird marriage, then run away, it's really childish. But like, when you're just looking at the raw numbers, the reason why Trump wants Canada is because he wants stuff from them. But again, he doesn't have the negotiation. It violates their sovereignty. No one wants that. Like, no, people in Canada do not want to be a part of the United States. Why would they elect to have now for-profit healthcare system that provides awful care comparatively, and then also higher costs, leading to people going bankrupt? Medical bankruptcy is the #1 type of bankruptcy in America. Like, that's awful. Okay, that's awful. The only type of bankruptcy that should ever be in existence is the stuff that you see in the movies. Okay, like, yeah. Anyway, but that all being said, that's just kind of the breakdown of where the U.S. and Canada's relations are at the moment. I think that it's very likely to be a better relationship now with Mark Carney compared to Justin Trudeau, because my theory is that Melania and Justin Trudeau were a little bit, they were much more fond of each other, and Trump, I don't think, liked that. So that's what kind of led to his initial outrage. But what do you think? That's all that I have today for my official show. Also, I posted a lot of other content. Specifically, I don't really follow a lot of pop culture, but I went through and I looked at the looks from the Met Gala, and I actually did a video of me reviewing them. Now, I'm not the biggest fashion person. I do love watching RuPaul's Drag Race. I have also done drag before. I participate in my local community in drag here as someone who helps out during the shows and stuff like that. But I'm not like the biggest fashion person, but I go through and I review it. I obviously don't know everything, so I get some things wrong, which I've now learned from people saying so in the comments. But if you're just looking for a good laugh, then definitely go and check that out. Again, if this is your first time here, say hello and where you're tuning in from. I'd like to get to know people. Y'all are all awesome, even if you don't like me. But I appreciate every single one of you. I'm probably going to be working on more content today. But love Drag Race. Yeah, I know, me too. Me too. But yeah, I hope that this was helpful for I can't English anymore. I hope that this was helpful for people. I love all of you so much. As a Canadian, I feel like you did good just explaining it to people who don't know. I'm from Nova Scotia. Oh, awesome. Yeah, see, one of the reasons I do these live shows is because a lot of Americans are overworked and underpaid, but also a lot of Americans sometimes don't have knowledge about how other countries work because we're just kind of living in our own bubble. And so if I can use my expertise to break down about stuff about Canada, then I'm going to. And trying to reach them in a language. So I appreciate every single one of you. Also, my Canadian viewers, y'all are awesome. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I really wish that we could have someone like Mark Carney, but the United States version. But you know, MF Hendo, oh, thank you. Oh, you joined the channel. I'm going to be releasing, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for my first members only video. But I'm going to be releasing members only content here soon. So it's really, really awesome. Thanks for your content and time. Oh my goodness, Patricia, thank you. To all the people who are in here that are spreading love, peace, and understanding, that's awesome. Daryl says, Maryland here, you're a great bud. Thank you. Thank you. And now that it's kind of towards the end of the live, as you all saw from like the live stream, the live is constantly full of obnoxious trolls. Like, they're constantly full of all these people who are constantly trying to get my attention. It's exhausting. No one wants to be a part of that, you know? So, thank you all for coming. Love ya. Aw. Well, it turns out that we don't need them. That is not true, Nadine. That is not true. I literally pointed that out in the live stream, which I'm going to be posting here soon. So, anyway, shout out to all of my amazing moderators in here. Aw, Bubbly Tortilla, which that's such a fantastic name. Watching your channel helps me feel less alone where I am. I'm surrounded by MAGA. Yeah, you know, we need to be visible. We need to be seen. We need to be heard. And this is something that keeps me going, is when it comes to the situation in America, MAGA is a lot like a small minority of people having a big voice, a big bullhorn. And we can't allow that to drown out what a lot of people are saying. So there's a whole bunch of people that are saying no. There's also even Trump supporters or people who voted for him that are like, you know, we probably shouldn't have done that. You should not have. But it's okay. As long as we're in the same boat together now, that's great. Doesn't mean that you get off the hook for your bad actions. You got to atone for your bad actions. But also, we can move forward together. But we need to atone for that. So I love all of you so much. Someone says you're full of hate. Says the person screaming in the chat. Have a good day, friend. Thank you, mods. Yeah, so anyway, I appreciate every single one of you. I need to skedaddle. Americans do not know geography. Oh no, we talked about that yesterday. So shout out to my amazing moderators in here. Joanna Tech, you're awesome. Ilisa, Kate, Akicha, Ellie, Cherie, y'all are incredible. Jenny, love all of you so much. I could not do this live without you all. So hopefully I didn't forget anyone. Y'all are incredible. Kate, love you. So anyway, aw. Anyway, I'm going to be posting more content, so definitely go and check it out. If you enjoyed this live stream, please make sure to like the stream before it ends, and then also subscribe. And if you want to support me in what I do on my channel, that allows me to make some income that I can then eventually, once I have the funds, I'm going to eventually have my own official studio so I don't have to do it in my car. So I love all of you so much. Shout out to all of my members of the channel as well. I'm going to start a thing where I start reciting them at the end of the live every day. So I have to go through and memorize that list. But MF Hendo, Kentisa, y'all are all awesome. So anyway, I love all of you so much. Just remember that you are beautiful. You are loved. You are valid. You are strong. And you are fierce. Don't let anyone or anything ever dim your shine. I love all of you so much. Bye!